Good afternoon and welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. I'm Jeff Rabinowitz, and this season we're bringing in voices from all sides to challenge assumptions, bridge divides, and build a better understanding of today's biggest issues. Today, I am not bringing in a guest. Today, I'm doing what I call a oceanside chat, a Coach Trippy solo, a Coach Trippy cameo, if you will. Today I'm going to talk about a lot of things we've talked about and a lot of things we haven't yet talked about, possibly. Today I'm going to give you my thoughts, me thinking out loud, just me. Um, first and foremost, I want to talk about education. It's one of my biggest things. It's my sense of mission in life is to improve our education system in the United States of America to include everything from a great education system that caters to our autistic children. I've had a great interview with Temple Grandin. It was an incredible conversation we have. It's up on our site. It's up on YouTube. It's up on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's everywhere. It's available to you uh, anywhere you look. Politicalnobrainer.com is our website where we host everything, where we keep everything. And it was just a great conversation. She talked about her challenges with autism. She talked about her progression because she had what she needed to excel. She had the coaching and the support she needed to excel, and she became an incredible um she ca- professor. She became an incredible scientist, a researcher. She developed um important things, important innovative scientific projects that helped a lot of people. The hug machine is one of them. Kids that have trouble showing emotion, she created the hug machine. And that's something you can research online. We also talked about it a little bit. So, point being, arriving at my landing on this one particular point, an education system that caters to and gives the support autistic children need to become the ultra contributors to our society that people like Temple Grandin have become. The other thing I talk about, and I don't know that I've talked about it on this podcast often enough, is what I call kids timing out. Kids timing out from foster care. They're sent. They go bounce from house to house to house throughout their life, foster home to host. Many are caring homes, but they have no stability throughout their childhood. And then at the age of 18, they're thrown to the wolves. They're thrown to the world to succeed and to prosper and to survive in this very difficult word to succeed in and to prosper and to survive in. And I think we should have a lot more support for them. At the age of 18, they're not ready to get their own apartment, get their own car, get a job, and live on a small state provided per diem that is supposed to subsidize their lifestyle. And ultimately, a lot of times those children do not prevail in this difficult society. A lot of times, as a terrible example of what could happen to them, is they turn themselves to realization that the only thing they have to barter over and above their older competition is themselves, and they turn to self sex. They turn to the sex trade. They turn to gangs that'll bring them in and give them some sort of support and a feeling of some sort of home life. That's not what we want to see. We want to see these children nurtured till possibly the age of 24, 25, provided with the education they need, the continued education they need to understand what it takes to achieve a lot in this world we live in today. And I would like to see that to be a vital part of our public education system, if not our public education, as well as our private education system. I think that they could contribute as well. Um, and so, and the other thing I really want to mention is the Democratic Party in and of itself in general. I believe we are the party that honors God in all we do. I believe that despite the narratives that are provided from the other party, the other side, I believe we are the party that honors God in all we do. We champion the vulnerable. And yes, we have taken it a little too far. Over the last 50 years, we've continued to grow social programs, entitlement programs. And yes, there may be a need to look at it and say, where have we gone too far? How have we been too giving in some respects? Um, But what's going on today is not the way we need to look at it. It's not the way we need to address it. It's not the way we need to amend it. It's not at all. We've taken this current administration has taken a wrecking ball to everything we know to be a daily part of our lives. And I just don't see that being the approach. I do see what as I've said, what I do see being the approach, the right approach is providing an education system that would empower people, impart people with the knowledge that they don't need government subsidies to survive, that they do understand, that they do understand that they can get a job, they can prosper, they can own a home. It's a great opportunity you have in America. Warren Buffett likes to call it the lucky gene pool. I refer to Warren Buffett often in my podcast. I like to call it 6 degrees to Warren Buffett. In Hollywood, they have a game 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon, where everything seems to revert back to him or revolve back to him. Often in world economics and home here at home economics, I have good examples of how things are learned from and revert back to Warren Buffett in our future endeavors and in our past endeavors. It seems to be he's had a lot to do with many of those. So, and another thing I want to touch base on in this fire oceanside chat, if you will, is voter confidence. And I had a great podcast with with geez, I can't believe I forgot his name. Let me just go back on my notes here with Alan Hayes, Lake County Supervisor of Elections. We had a great conversation, and we talked about how Lake County, Florida, is the gold star of secure, fundamental, integrity filled elections and election results, and the country, the whole country could take a lesson from us here in America. But across America, there is no reason to believe that there's been any funny business done in the election system. And uh and that's just that. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but like I said, we are the party that honors God in all we do. We are the party that acknowledged our loss in the 2024 presidential elections. We're not the party that cried like little babies for 4 years straight that we were robbed of the election. We acknowledged the loss. We facilitated a peaceful transfer of power, and I'm proud of that, as our party did. I'm proud of our behavior on that. We didn't encourage violence. We didn't encourage riots. We didn't encourage people to break into our government buildings. We took our loss, we licked our wounds, and we're looking to move forward in a successful way. And I'm looking to move forward. I'm looking to be a part of that move forward. Um, so the allegations of voter fraud or elections being stolen are just nonsense. And then comes another point I want to try and make in this sort of 1 hour chat is what brought me into this feeling this need of being a social entrepreneur, a political activist, if you will. I'm not necessarily a political candidate. I tried that. It wasn't really for me. I realized early on in my election bid that one of the phrases I like to say was I wasn't here to raise money. I'm here to raise awareness. Well, that's not really the way you do it in politics. So I am just raising awareness now. I'm not necessarily running for office anymore. So raising money is not my thing. I don't want to ask people for their hard-earned money. That if they do have extra, I would rather they send it to St. Jude's Children's Hospital or a charity like Smile Train that really helps kids. Um, I would rather they do that with their money. I think it's appalling that we can look back on the 2024 presidential elections and come to the realization that just two presidential candidates raised and spent nearly $3 billion on nonsense, on billboards and radio snippets, TV snippets, ads, to not present their case, but just to convince you day after day that the one thing you need to do is get out there and vote for them. And then what they do is a big guess to all of us because that $3 billion didn't clarify a single thing. I will say this, though, what may have clarified, what may have helped President Trump's bid for reelection was the fact that he spent 3 hours on a podcast and he presented himself fairly well during that podcast. And I encourage all candidates to take more time, spend more time on free podcasts than they do spending time raising money and spending it wastefully on advertisement that goes nowhere. Hang on, let me just take a sip of this and then I'm going to carry on. All righty. Got a little parched there. I remember back, it was about um, President Obama, during his exit interview, he was leaving office after 2 terms. I really liked his presidency. I really liked his style. I really liked the way he articulated his message. And as he was leaving, as he was thumping around the country, bidding his farewell, he had said something important to me. If something needs fixing, then lace up your shoes and do some organizing. Do you, if you're disappointed by your elected officials, grab a clipboard, get some signatures, and run for office yourself. And that is what I did. I ran for office. I realized the game of politics was not my game, but that's the truth. I encourage you, if you feel you're not happy with the way things are going, get out there, run for office. And I'm not happy with the way things are going. I haven't been happy in a long time with the way things are going. It's not just this last 6 months. I think we could be doing a lot better. Um, the problem is that we as a Democratic Party spend an enormous amount of time talking about Donald Trump. There's nothing to discuss. He's the president. He's doing the things he's doing. We're not happy with him. Often we're appalled at his actions. Often we're appalled at his disregard for law and order, disregard for due process. Recently, now, Abrego Garcia is returned home to the United States and he's facing new charges. What was the issue with him facing these charges here in America? The due process rules of due process being followed and being charged and being convicted if he were, and then following through with whatever the punishment was. Why just deport him? I don't understand the logic of that. I don't understand the reason this president has no regard for judges' rulings. I do understand that he feels as if he gets to the next level, the next highest court, that the ruling will be overruled. But generally, when a ruling is passed down, you obey that ruling, and then you argue the point that that ruling was wrong, and you carry it all the way to the Supreme Court, which President Trump has done often and has at times won those arguments. But why not just follow along those steps? I don't know why he has this issue with sharing best practices and following the rules of law. But I will tell you this. In Donald Trump's supporters' eyes, and even in many of his detractors' eyes, he is swinging the bat hard at a lot of important issues. And he could very well be the Reggie Jackson of baseball who struck out 2,597 times, an all-time high, but he also hit a lot of home runs. And Donald Trump does hit some home runs. He does win some support, not only of his adamant fans, his adamant supporters, but here and there he hits home runs with people that once would have said never Trump. They were never Trumpers. That is not me. I do not support his actions. I am not believing in the way he does things. I am believing, though, that in life, there's a good rule of thumb: never waste a good crisis. And I don't believe we should waste this crisis. I believe as a Democratic Party, we need to reorganize and get onto a new understanding of what the American people want. And I can tell you this: I don't want, and I don't think a lot of people want, a socialist movement in America. That is not my thing. I believe America is the opportunity, the land of opportunity. I am a capitalist. I believe I have what it takes to succeed in a big way. I'm very happy with my share of the bounty, but I am also always willing to try hard to achieve and accomplish more financially. And and I believe in America that opportunity is always there. As a Democratic Party, we sponsored a lot of important legislation that helped America come a long way. One of those biggest pieces of legislation that helped America come a long way, and it seems like we don't really take credit and convey the message of how important a piece of legislation it was the Affordable Care Act. I absolutely love the Affordable Care Act. The problem is, I think the acronym is wrong. I've said this before and I'll say it again. It should have been the Available Care Act. In times of need, in times when whether you've been laid off by your employer or if you've just said, you know what, I've had enough of this employer. I've done all I can do, and all I can do is continue to be crapped on, continue to be passed over for promotions that should have been mine or raises that you're just not willing to pay. I'm done. And you know what? If you're the guy that's been working from home, eating Cheetos all day, snacking as you're doing your Zoom calls, you've got rampant diabetes, you've got all kinds of healthcare issues, and the biggest concern on your mind is if I leave this job, I will lose my insurance, I will lose healthcare, I will never be able to replace it again unless I move lateral to another crappy position that provides a group plan. That is not the case anymore. With the Affordable Care Act, you can have some money in the bank. You can pick up an insurance plan and pick up with your life. and you can start your own business or really take your time to find a job and an employer that appreciates you and treats you the way you deserve to be treated. So the Available Care Act, as I like to call it, was a big step in the right direction of a great capitalist movement in America. I love the idea of a big, huge capitalist movement in America. And I just recently, within 5 to 7 to 10 days ago, heard of a local Orlando personal injury attorney announcing he himself has said it. I spent the money on legal to develop a new political party. That lawyer's name is John Morgan, and he is saying his new political party is going to be called the Capitalist Party. And I'm willing to be a big part of that movement because I believe that's the way America should be moving in the right direction of the capitalist movement, where every American has the opportunity to do great things financially. And great things financially don't always mean starting your own small business. I'm going to tell you nowadays, it is very, very difficult to start your own business and really seem to and really have some great success. Uh, it's not necessarily what it used to be. It is still very possible. Dedication is a big part of it. Perseverance and patience is another big part of it. Another big part of succeeding in your own small business is luck. But I'll tell you something, big business has consumed everything little business does. The little businessman used to be able to do great things in certain businesses, and that is just not the case anymore. It is very difficult. I own a small business, I own a medical waste company, and every single proposal I put together, I come to realize some of the giant companies in the area have already got them locked into long term contracts with auto renews. And the only thing we get is we'd love to work with you, but we just called our company to cancel and tell them we're switching over to you, and they told us we have already 30 days ago auto renewed to another 3 year commitment with the company we're with. So this is kind of the maneuvering and posturing big companies have done to consume what small business is doing. So I'm going to give you another remedy. I'm going to tell you another way to that I think we should, as a Democratic Party or as both parties work together, should come to some realizations. But hang on, let me get through my notes because I know it's here. I just have all sorts of things to talk about. Okay, so let me talk about one of Warren Buffett's chief stock buyers. Okay, and then we're going to talk about stock buying. So, one of Warren Buffett's chief stock buyers is a man by the name of Ted Weschler. Ted Weschler uh, was was once had an IRA valued at about $70,000. Through investing over the course of time, he turned it into over $260 million. Uh, he was asked about it. The story broke. He didn't ever seem to think the story would broke, but the story broke, and he himself gave some pretty pointed information about it. It quickly became clear to Wessler wanted to show that even though his initial IRA stake grew more than 300,000%, from 1989 to 2018, which is a 30-year period, it did grow 300,000%. Uh, Normally, you don't see private investors give out their numbers. Ted Weschler did make some numbers clear, and what he said is he 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 basically said he encourages uh, young people to do what he did, and that is to accumulate his 9 digit net worth. He saved and invests early and often. He took advantage of any retirement account benefits offered by his employer. Now, my point is if you take the time to understand investing, if our education system provided some sort of understanding of investing, a lot of Americans would be better off. A lot of Americans would have significantly more in their savings account. I don't know that every American. I'm almost willing to cast out that every American would grow their IRA stake 300,000% in a 30-year period, but they would grow their IRA stake significantly. So a part of our education system to arrive at my landing on this particular point should be investing. Now, in my hand, I have a book. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to show it. Blue Chips for Kids and Parents. Now, this is a great book about a dad that was an investor. His child asked him some questions. He decided to to create some charts and to teach his child what he had to offer. And he wrote a book. And I think this should be something we suggest to all kids they read over the summer, possibly. They read it, they familiarize with themselves with it the best they can, and they take some sort of test, and we gauge their knowledge, and they receive some sort of incentive for doing so on their own time. Because in order to invest, you've got to have an understanding of the difference between an index fund and a money market. You've got to have some basic understandings, even some basic understandings of income and tax law. And if you get that, if you are imparted with that knowledge at a young age, and it sparks some sort of interest for you to continue on growing your knowledge in that particular course of life, investing, you will be better off in the long run. See, what we do here is in America is we have two sides, red and blue, and we're fighting each other constantly. And frankly, neither party is doing any good for anybody at this point in time. There is an opportunity where we could do a lot of good if we rethink what we've been doing all these years. A lot has changed, but the one thing that hasn't changed one single bit is our public education system. For 50 years, it's the same old thing. The same old brick and mortar buildings, the same old curriculum, the same old school schedule. We're seeing some innovation though. I've had a great guest, Daryl Blackall. He runs Orlando Workforce Advantage Workforce Academy, and it's got an A/B schedule. Some kids are flunking out of school miserably, carrying on with their life, and they're reaching out to Daryl and his charter school where they do cross the aisle and get a real high school diploma with a A/B schedule. They can work during the day. And young people are supporting their families. They don't have time to go to school eight to three, so they can work. They can go to school at night and continue on and get their high school diploma, their real diploma, not just a GED. So we have seen some creativity in education, simply not enough. I, as a Democrat, would like to be the party that creates that innovation on a continuous basis, that enormous investment on a continuous basis. So let me carry on with my point. The Build Back Better legislation that Joe Biden proposed initially was priced at price tag of 1.75 trillion. It came in at a lot less, about a third of that, 600 billion. It included investments in education. It included investments in a lot of things, infrastructure and other things. Uh, we were seeing a big reversal on that program because that's what this administration does. They like to crash and burn things. Uh, why that is, I'm not really sure, but that is what they do. That is their mode of operation now. Um, and I would like to see us be the Democratic Party that argues the point and not the point of all the hypocrisies of Donald Trump and not the point of all the the salacious behavior and the salacious disregard for law and order. I want to be the party that builds something, a, an incredibly successful K through 12 public education system. I want to be that party that creates a knowledge that imparts a knowledge on the majority of people to succeed in the greatest society in the world with the greatest opportunities in the world. I don't want to be the party that Bernie Sanders created that basically got 13 million young people to concede defeat. To say the only hope we have is the government providing everything for us because everything's changed so drastically that we can't possibly accomplish anything in this economy, and the oligarchs and the billionaires will continue to take everything. If they are winning, if the oligarchs are doing very well, if Jeff Bezos is doing very well, if Mark Zuckerberg is doing very well, I want you to have an understanding and a knowledge of how to invest in those people early on and and achieve a lot of financial growth by those investments. Yes, you may not be the person that thinks of Facebook. You may not be the person that disrupts retail marketing as we know it. But if you are the person that invests in it, you're going to benefit a lot. If you're the person that just says, I work for this shitty fucking company and all I do is make these billionaires rich, well, that's probably all you're going to ever accomplish in life is make other people work hard and make other people rich. There was a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, by Robert Kiyosaki. And he says there's two things in life. You can work for money or you can make money work for you. Mark Cuban says he works for money first and then he has the money to make money work for him. We have to have that knowledge in order to do those things. And I would like to be the Democratic Party that imparts that knowledge on young people. So carrying on to the next quick summary of what's been going on over the past basically 5 months, let's talk about tariffs. Let's quickly summarize tariffs. Tariffs have been a tool in every president's toolbox to implement in order to protect American businesses' interests. It is difficult sometimes for American businesses to compete with places like China. I was in a sales position where I sold bulk items, slag, they call it, convention items. I sold umbrellas to a company, a local theme park in Orlando, 3,000 umbrellas. In order to produce them in America, it would have cost more simply for me to produce them in America than it did for me to produce them in China, bring them over to America, and factor in a pretty healthy profit. So that's a difficult position we're in. America won't be able to produce those products when we're competing with foreign nations like that are doing things kind of differently. First of all, the cheap labor thing is a big issue overseas. And the second thing is they don't always abide by the same environmental rules we abide by here in America. So tariffs are a tool. There was some impact fees placed on those umbrellas, bringing them here. And we paid them, and there was still money left over. A lot more money than would have been left over at a higher price if we produced them in America. But tariffs have always been a real life example of something in the president's toolbox to offset those types of challenges for American business they face every day. But let me be clear. Let me talk about a specific tariff in place. When Phil Knight, a lot of people can relate to this story rather than what they're hearing on about the subject of tariffs, started the Nike company, originally imported shoes from Japan and sold them in the US under the brand name Blue Ribbon Sports, which later became Nike. The issue with the US government arose because of tariffs and import fees. Initially, Nike faced complications with the US government over improper classification of their imported shoes, leading to fines and penalties. Tariffs have been in place. This is nothing new. They have been in place for the longest time to offset our competitors' ability to just whip our ass across the board because of cheap labor. They've been in place for a long time. Donald Trump is not using tariffs to protect the American worker. Let's be clear, the American worker, the American people want to wear Nikes. They don't want to sew Nikes. They don't want to put the soles on the bottom of Nikes or make rubber soles or insoles or whatever you do with shoes. They don't want to lace them up or however you box them up after they're made. They want to wear them. They're going to continue to be made overseas. Again, I go back to Warren Buffett. Many, many years ago, he bought Dexter shoes. And he bought Dexter shoes for the price tag of Warren Buffett bought Dexter shoes for the price tag of around $8.5 billion. He was so happy with his purchase during his yearly annual shareholders meeting. He talked about his purchase of Dexter shoes and talked about how he was clopping his heels to his office every day, excited about the prospects and the profits that Dexter shoes would bring to his conglomerate. In the end, the challenge of cheap labor crushed Dexter shoes. He not only paid $8.5 billion, he paid it with a total stock option. He paid it with stock, preferred stock of Berkshire Hathaway. The company was valueless within a few years of the purchase. He ultimately, because of the fact that the cheap labor piece killed his ability to profit on his purchase and to ultimately make Dexter Shoes a successful company. He had thought he would be able to do very well with it. He was wrong. So the challenge of cheap labor, the challenge of foreign competition has always existed. And the fact of the matter is, we have done our very best to offset those challenges with tariffs. That is not what Donald Trump is doing today. Donald Trump is waging war on the world, an economic war on the world, excluding two countries, Russia and North Korea, because he has a fascination with a partnership with Russia. We could partner with Russia on many things if they were more upstanding. We could very well do so, but the problem is partnering with Russia at the moment under the Putin administration doesn't seem to hold a lot of prospect or promise for great success. So the idea of making Russia our ultimate economic partner and 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 propping up North Korea to be the capital of cheap or possibly slave labor is probably not going to work out the way Donald Trump hopes. And we're going to have to make some serious modifications after he leaves office. But in order to make those modifications, we have to be the party in power. We have to be the party that conveys a message, something than other than Donald Trump is doing terrible things. We have to be the party that says we're going to do them right. We're going to understand that there was a need for change, and we're going to change significantly things in the right way, in a step-by-step manner. And we're going to be the party that really truly makes America better and better and better. And we're going to honor God in everything we do as we always have done, and not necessarily give credit to the other party who creates the narrative that that's what they do, when in fact often it is not what they do. So this is an uphill understanding, an uphill battle for the party itself, the party oligarchs themselves. And we also need a party that comes to the realization that we also need to reinvent our military, and we need to take big steps in that. Let's take on this topic that's often been brought up, the $150 billion that we just gave, that we just willy nilly gave to Ukraine. Let me be clear. One, it was the right thing to do. Two, the return on investment is enormous if we take advantage of the understanding of what the return on investment is. We've come to the realization that our whole entire military needs to be retooled. But and the funny thing is in a much less expensive way. We no longer need, possibly no longer need, or we may need a lot less of jet planes like the F-47 that was just approved, the F-47 fighter jet, 47 sort of being some sort of bow or some sort of recognition to Donald Trump being the 47th president. We now realize we can do a lot more with a lot less expensive drones. But the problem is when we think of the billions and possibly trillions of dollars in savings, if we retool our military to be lighter, faster, and less expensive, here's the one big obstacle we come across. Every single elected official in the United States is going to argue that that is not what we should be doing because they want to continue to have those big military contracts in their districts. They want to continue to have those big, expensive planes built in their districts where they're being built right now. They don't want those jobs to go away. They cannot stand the idea of those jobs going away because they not only don't want us to spend less on the military, they don't want their military contractors to be able to spend less on them or not even have the ability to spend what they're spending donating to their campaigns. So in order to overcome that obstacle, Americans need to be more informed. America needs to stop picking their candidates by the label, red or blue, and need to start understanding, are they really going to do the things that are right for America? Now, let me talk about a politician named Andrea Ocasio-Cortez. Allegedly, she seems to be chanting the wealth and the ways of the progressive movement. We're going to provide everything for everyone. But she's not living in poor public funded housing. She's jet setting around the country on private jets. She's thinking about running for president. She's wearing designer clothes. In her own district, there's no real love for her, really. One voter in her district said it's hard to find a private plane. It's Easter weekend, mocked Jackson Heights resident Tatiana Locatus of the canceled event. She is too big for us. Elmhurst Ramsey is free as a Republican city council candidate called Andrea Ocasio-Cortez an absentee landlord disconnected from reality of her working class constituents. She's flying around on private jets talking about the oligarchy, which is not really resonating with the regular guy, the person going shopping over here at the supermarket. He said sarcastically, adding, "She's a rock star." So if you're believing in the progressive movement, if you're believing the progressive movement is the way to go for America, let me tell you, you're believing I got a bridge to sell you. Because the progressive movement is not the way to go in America. If you think the only hope you have is to live in public housing, I think that's a sad reality for many people. We shouldn't be thinking like that. We should be thinking we live in a land of opportunity, and we need to be able to seize those opportunities. Carpe diem, seize the day, seize the moment in time where you can achieve a lot. So I will continue to have these conversations. I have a lot more notes and a lot more stuff I want to go over, but I think that's enough for today. I really am looking forward to, I've reached out to John Morgan, the local personal injury attorney who has started his own party, the Capitalist Party. I've stopped by his office. I've emailed him. I've asked a secretary of his to leave a copy of the email on his desk for me. I'm waiting. I'm looking forward to hearing back from him. I hope he wants to join my podcast and explain more about his party, his movement, the capitalist movement. I'm looking to be a significant player in creating the movement of a capitalist type momentum in America for every American. And so I look forward to hearing from you. This is Jeff Rabinowitz. I like to go by the the nickname Coach Trippy. And I look forward to hearing from you. If you like this podcast, like, share, subscribe, comment. We definitely need your subscriptions. We need you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to hear your comments. Tell me what you think. And let me tell you, I'm not a fan of the current administration, but I am a fan of swinging the bat hard and fixing things. So I don't think that's what we're doing now. I just think what we're doing now is kind of destructive, less fixing. I like to see more fixing and less destruction. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that topic too. Talk to you soon. This is Coach Trippy signing out, and looking forward to hearing from you. Peace and love.